Greetings, grade 11, and today we move over to our fourth lesson in economics. In our chapter, the basic terms and concepts. In the last chapter, you learned about the entities of an economy, and we at the moment are concentrating on a particular entity, the consumers. And we are looking at the terms and concepts that describes what a consumer does. The last time you learned the concept of demand and want and consumption. You also learned why it plays a very important role in the economy. Today, we look into the concept of utility. Utility in an economic term, as an economic term, it refers to the want-satisfying quality in any good or service. This want-satisfying quality differs from person to person and at different periods of time. You can imagine the term utility by imagining that when you become a consumer in the study of economics, you have obtained a special glass which has special powers, somewhat like an power glass that can have an X-ray vision. The only thing is, if you wear these glasses, you will be able to see the want-satisfying quality in each and every product. So when you go to the market and you see a range of product in front of you, you can give a certain number. You can say that this has a number 5, this has a number 7, this has a number 10, depending on the want-satisfying quality that each product has for you. That particular aspect is called utility in economics. In reality, it works somewhat like that. When you go over to a mall and you have gone over to buy a certain amount of things, whatever you see in the mall, you psychologically respond to that. You start understanding that this particular thing will have more want-satisfying quality, and this particular product will have more want-satisfying quality. So therefore, our lesson today is to look at this particular concept called utility. For the moment, we define utility as the want-satisfying quality in any good or service. So to understand the concept of utility, we can look at some of the features that utility has. And we can remember the features by the mnemonic UNRAMS, U-N-R-A-M-S. The first U stands for the fact that utility is different from usefulness. That if a product is useful does not mean that it has a utility for a consumer. I can give you an example where if you receive a supercomputer that can give exceptional speed in computing, and it can tell you where the planets are oriented and what the weather is going to be like. But if it has no features for editing, seeing a movie, gaming, it will not have so much of utility for you. So in the same way, there are many items that may be very useful. The medicines may be very useful, but it might not have utility. Vaccination may be very useful, but for a consumer, it may not have any utility. So utility is a want-satisfying power and not how useful a product is. The N stands for the fact that utility cannot be measured, because utility is a concept that is psychological. It is not a physical concept. It does not exist in the physical structure of a product. It is not like the weight. The weight of a product does not change. It will always remain the same. The size of a product does not change. It is not like that. It is a psychological concept. It tells you how much of satisfaction you can get from a product, and that satisfaction cannot be measured. You can simply rank it and say I can get more or less satisfaction, but you cannot say that I can get exactly 15 units of satisfaction or 12 units of satisfaction. You can only say that I can get more satisfaction than this. You can rank it but you cannot measure it. Thirdly, the other R stands for the fact that utility is relative. Relative stands for the fact that utility has to be seen in relative terms, that your satisfaction has to be compared with something else. So if you say that I think I'll get a lot of satisfaction by having a pizza, it means that you are comparing it with the satisfaction of something else, and you're saying that yes, I'll get more and then I'll get less. It also means that you would want to see the utility in a very relative manner. It means that it depends on your situation. If you feel that today is a very hot day, you might have more utility for a soft drink or a cold drink than on a day when it's very cold. In the same way, food, when you're very hungry, has more utility than when you're not hungry. So it is relative. It also is associated with some other aspect or situation that you are in. The A stands for the fact that utility is an abstract concept. By abstract, we mean to say that utility cannot be touched, felt, and like I just said before, that it is a psychological concept. M stands for the fact that utility has no moral connotation. When we say moral aspect, we mean to say that just because a thing has more utility does not mean that it could be something that is approved by the society. Like maybe you could be a vegetarian, but let's say one of your friend has a high utility for meat. So you cannot give your moral judgment on the fact that no, meat eating is bad, therefore you cannot have more utility. It has nothing to do. It's simply your immediate reaction to the product. It is your psychological reaction to the product. So some things in the society is still used, alcohol, cigarettes, smoking, but it might not be very good for your own health or for the society. Lastly, we say that utility is a subjective concept. It is a concept very much similar to saying that yes, you like a movie, you find the food tasty. So this, when we talk about subjective aspects, it belongs to the person who is experiencing that particular product. So it depends, the utility depends on the person who is experiencing that product. So it's somewhat like the tastiness of a food, the enjoyability of a movie. So if you enjoy a movie, it does not mean that everyone enjoys a movie. Right? The feeling that the particular product is beautiful. So something, if it's beautiful, might look ugly to someone else. So it's an experience of a person, but unlike other objective aspects like weight, size, the color, it will remain the same for all the people who are seeing it. But a subjective aspect like utility, the one satisfying quality, it entirely depends on the person who is experiencing it. Next, we see how utilities are measured. Like I already told you, utility cannot be measured in absolute terms. If you give a number of 20, it does not mean that this particular utility of 20 means that the other person is also experiencing a utility of 20. It simply means that number is a certain rank. It is certain aspects of ranking, but it's not an absolute number. So when we look at utility, we come with the concept of total and marginal utility. The total utility means the total satisfaction attained by the consumer from all the units of a commodity taken together in the consumption of a particular thing at a time. So if I show you this particular table, the total utility is the sum total of all the satisfaction that you receive from having a certain amount of goods. So the first column tells you the quantity, which is given as 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. And the third column will tell you the total utility. So if the first unit that you consume, if it's a pizza that you're consuming, gives you an utility of 85, and the second second item or the second pizza gives you a utility of 79, the total utility from both the pizzas is known to be 164, which is a sum of 85 and 79. So total utility is the sum total of all the satisfaction that you have received from consuming a certain amount of goods. However, marginal utility is a different concept. Marginal utility is the additional utility that you obtain from an additional unit of any commodity consumed or acquired. It is measured as the difference between the utility of the total units of stock of consumption of a given commodity and that of consuming 1 unit less in the stock considered. So again, if I show you the table once more, for example, if by having the first pizza you have got a utility of 85, from the second it gives you a utility of 79, and the third gives you a utility of 73, the total utility from the 3 pizzas would have been 237. And from 2 pizzas would have been 164. So marginal utility can be found by subtracting the total utility of the third pizza from the total utility of the second pizza, which is 303 minus 237, which gives you a value of 73. In the same way, you can also look at the first and the second pizza. The total utility of the second pizza is 164, while the total utility of the first pizza is 85. So therefore, the marginal utility of the second pizza would be 164 minus 85, which is 79. So therefore, marginal utility is the additional utility, the extra utility that you receive from consuming 1 extra unit of a product. You can either find marginal utility in itself, or if you know the total utility, you can take the total utility that you have received from the amount of goods and look at the total utility received from the previous stock of goods and subtract it, and then you can get the total utility, the marginal utility. Now, one more aspect of utility is that the marginal utility by nature will always reduce. So look at this picture of a friend maybe who is having pizzas on, and then every slice that he has, the first, if I ask you which particular slice gives you the greatest satisfaction, definitely the first slice is the most satisfying for everyone. I'm sure all of you agree on that. Then the second slice always gives you a little less satisfaction, and the third even less. So in the table, if you go back to that again, you see that the marginal utility always diminishes by the law of nature. So psychologically, we call it the diminishing returns. So we call it the law of diminishing utility or diminishing returns. And this particular aspect tells us that as you consume more and more of a particular item, the satisfaction that you consume, that you obtain from it, keeps on reducing. So this ends our 4th lesson in economics today. Today we have learned the concept of utility. We have learned that utility has certain features, and we have learned that to measure utility, we use the concept of marginal utility and total utility. So thank you, class, and until we meet again, keep yourself safe. Thank you and God bless.